Hey, listen, 91.3 WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative since 1982, brought to you by the Buffalo State College Student Activity Fee. And this is Jessica, Public Affairs Director. I'm also DJ Lacey Lou, but I have not done a music show in probably at least a year now, so I'm having a lot of fun here. And this is our day one of Week of the Warriors, the second. We did another one last year. It was 168 straight hours talking about domestic violence. And this year I mix it up, but today is domestic violence and dating violence. And here in the studio we have Suzanne Suchan.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
Good, it's only day one.
It is, but I'm pumped.
Awesome. As am I. Thank you for having me on again.
All right, you have a lot of things going on for you.
Yeah, all good stuff. I don't know where you want to start.
Let's start with Wild Women Unite.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Because I can't hear me. I can hear you, but I can't hear me.
How about now?
Hello. Yeah, that's better. Thank you. Okay, Wild Women Unite is, yeah, that's right. We just added a new location. Wild Women Unite, everybody, is an awesome organization that puts on events for women 16 and over to get outdoors and try new things. It's super, super cool. So you can go online, and there's 2 locations in New York. There's one in Grand Island. That one happens in September. And then there's one in Ellicottville that happens in August. So go to wildwomenunite.com. Under the locations tab, choose one of those locations, and then you can browse the workshops. Grand Island has over 20 workshops available. You can try stuff like kayaking, fishing, zip lining. There's a healing circle, something new for this year. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And then in Ellicottville, this is at Holiday Valley. This is primo. You go there, and your ticket includes the aerial park. And so don't get scared, though. It's super cool. Like, I'm not a big fan of heights, but they show all these cute little kids on it. So we can all start there. And then if you're really feeling brave, it's a progressive park. So after that, you can continue on to the harder ones should you so choose. So the Ellicottville one has the aerial park. You also get a ride on their super cool mountain space coaster. And then there's only a few workshops for that one. And it's in Ellicottville at Holiday Valley. So that's what that is. The tickets are under $200. There's specials going on because it's like an early bird special for Grand Island. So go there and check out all the workshops. Sign up. Bring, daughters bring their moms bring their daughters. Bring your sisters, your aunts, and everybody. Bring your coworkers and your peers and your besties. It's just a super awesome event. There's also group rates if you want to stay in a hotel together. There's all kinds of rates available online. So go there, wildwomenunite.com, and check it out.
All right. I'm really excited for that one, and I'm actually considering going to both of them.
Ooh, wow. I'd love to have you.
I've wanted to go to Ellicottville for a while now, so.
I've never been, and I'm a little nervous with the whole height thing, but, I even there's a tree climbing thing also. It's called forest climb or something like that. And they have 10 trees that have, like, climbing rocks, like a climbing wall.
Yeah.
Climbing rock hook, handily things, but they're on trees. And the same thing, they have, these cute little girls on there. So that's what I used for the picture, so you don't get too scared. And it starts real easy and it progresses. So there's something, for somebody who's more sedentary or somebody who's really active.
Is this one of the things, because I remember last year I was trying to plan a trip there, and is it one of the ones where you would do this like aerial obstacle course and then you zip line to the next one?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And again, there's easy ones. So everybody has to start off on the easy one. So we do the kiddie one, and if we're feeling good, we can continue.
Even if people are afraid of heights, I think that once you do the first one, you realize how exactly easy that was, and the adrenaline rush that you get, you're just going to keep wanting to go.
I think so, too. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because especially, it's about facing challenges and fears, and with a group, it makes it so much easier because, women encourage each other. We don't stand around waiting for you to fall and go, bah! We're there saying, yeah, we can do this, and that's what makes it so awesome.
I actually brought my niece last year, and she said it changed her life.
I love to hear that. It gives me tingles, and that's why life rocks. It's just a beautiful thing.
Okay, so aside from the Wild Women Unite, you also have the Exposure concert coming up.
Right. Now, the Exposure concert, this is a free show. Free. So there's no excuse to not go. It's a 3-day event, and it happens at the Cove Seafood and Banquets, which is at 4701 Transit Road in Depew. And it's a 3-day show. We use both stages, the covered patio and the indoor main stage. We have over 40 bands that are playing, and it has a purpose. This is a domestic violence awareness event. So it's not necessarily a fundraiser because it's free to get in. We will, recoup our expenses with basket raffles. However, we did step it up a notch this year, and we're doing a special drive for Child and Family Services, who umbrellas Haven House, which is very important for me to let you know that Haven House also has shelters for men. Because I spent some time before selecting who we were going to do a drive for, and that was the bargaining chip. That was the pivotal point for me, was because there's not enough services for men out there at all. And so when they let me know, I think just effective less than a year ago, they now do offer their shelter services for men. So we're doing a drive for them and for Haven House, and a Verizon cell phone. The Verizon Hope Line, it's called, that program. And so you can bring your used old cell phones, and they guarantee they'll wipe it off. Don't worry about if you left anything on there. It's completely confidential. Nothing is looked at. They don't look at your phone or what's on there or anything like that, so no worries. They recycle them. If they're usable, they end up in the hands of people who are being victimized, and it's their lifeline to help. So it's a very great, important cause. So this whole thing, it's going on its 7th year, which is just so exciting. This is the 7th year, so we're hoping it's lucky. So come on in. You can see the band list online at loveshouldn'thurt.org. And also the middle day, I didn't tell you when it is. It's June 24th, 5th, and 26th. And the middle day on June 25th is Small Business Saturday. And there we have over 30 local merchants that you can come and meet and shop from. It's super awesome cool. So come and bring a couple dollars for the baskets, a couple dollars for the drive, bring your old cell phone to donate for Verizon Hope Line, and then meet awesome local merchants, and you can get some really cool stuff. I know there's going to be Nick's Spider Venom hot sauce, which I had some, and it's really good. But also the list of vendors is online. So you can see all that at loveshouldn'thurt.org. Click on the exposure concert, and everything will be there. And we do have a couple openings left. If you are an acoustic act, this will be on the patio. There's a few openings if you'd like to play, and you could find the whole schedule with what openings are. There's only like 4 left. So have a look if you're interested, and just reach out. There's a contact form. Just fill it out. It'll go directly to me.
Speaking of Child and Family Services, we actually have them coming in on Friday at 10 a.m.
Oh, that's wonderful. I invited them to come on Suzapalooza Spotlight, too.
Was it Linda?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, Linda McCartan is coming in on Friday at 10 a.m. from Child and Family Services to talk about child abuse and bullying.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. I want them to really get out there, and, they have to, we want to help our agencies let the public know that they exist.
Yes.
Because for people who are in the middle of a situation, you don't know who to call. And so we need to get the word out, through media like this, who is available and what help there is for you.
So anybody that hasn't, I know Suzapalooza, Suzanne runs Suzapalooza. She comes in the first Monday of every month now from 1 to 2:30 if you haven't heard her. She also came in last year for Week of the Warriors. I think that was the first time I physically ever actually met you.
Yes.
It's a year.
Yeah, happy anniversary to us.
It feels like so much longer.
It does. It feels like we've been through so much together.
Yes. But me and Susie found out we're like the same person.
Yeah. And even the first day I was here, we had our stones in our pocket.
Yes.
The crystals.
Okay, so backdating it a little bit too, and so if nobody has heard you talk about your story on Suzapalooza or last year for Week of the Warriors, can we talk a little bit about what you've been through and your experience?
Yeah, so the reason I'm here with a humongous smile on my face is because of an unfortunate situation. Back when I was, I'm going to tell you the whole story because now I could see it more in hindsight, so I know why it happened. So let's talk about that. When I was a little kid, people didn't know how to classify me. Now, I'm kind of funky looking, and if you see me, you might question what is my heritage. So all of my life, people have always said, "What are you?" Scratching their head. "What are you?" And it used to really bother me, and I would just answer them, "I'm regular." But so I always had this weight on my shoulder. Like people were kind of singling me out because they didn't know how to file what I was. And honestly, it doesn't matter. But so people would call me names. They called me the N-word. They called me names, and I'd go home crying all the time. And so once I met this person who would end up being my abuser, even though I was a very happy, outspoken, a happy-go-lucky kid, I always had one or two best friends. Really, the only downside of my well-being was that I was concerned about my looks. When I was around 5, I remember this lady at bingo. She once said to me, "Are you a little boy or a little girl?"
That's the worst.
Yeah. So that was really the only negative thing in my entire childhood. Other than that, I'm a Leo. I'm confident. I love life, and I could stay happily busy all afternoon with an egg beater. I'm very easy to accommodate. So going through, going through school and stuff, and sometimes, the usual, not being picked for prom or not being asked for prom, not being, given stuff at Carnation Day and all that other stuff. It always hurt a little bit, but, most of us, I think, have that. So in telling my story, I know that a lot of the listeners will be able to identify with something. So there was always that. Once I did meet this person, I trusted him almost immediately. This person pretty much swept me off my feet almost immediately, represented an inflated family social status, and kind of like fluffed his feathers like a peacock. So he did his little show-off thing and everything, and I fell for it, and pretty much within a short period of time, we were convinced, I'm using my fingers as quotation marks, that we were soulmates, that we were meant for each other, and there'd be nobody else. And shortly after that, he started to make fun of my friends, and he would say things like, "Why do you hang out with them?" And that would soon turn into my family. And he would pick on my sister or pick on my mother. And he would say things like, "My grandfather remembers your mother when she grew up. And they said that she used to, be with lots of men." And these things made me scratch my head. And I would be like, what? Me and my mom were always close. I would never, ever expect to hear anything like this. But at the same time, I felt so awkward about it that I never approached her about it because, well, gosh, what if it was true? I don't know. I never asked her. So that stayed buried away in my mind. And over the next, I'd say 6 months, pretty much I stopped hanging out with my friends. I stopped my guitar lessons. I stopped going roller skating. I stopped having outside social fun and interests. And that's a dead ringer. That whole isolation thing, it's a dead ringer. You're in for it. It's going to escalate. It's going to get worse. So let's pause right here. If these resonate with you, this is grooming into isolation.
Did he actually try to make you not go, or did he make you feel like you shouldn't go?
He made me feel like I shouldn't go. I'll give you an example. One of my jobs that I had, everybody wanted to go out for lunch. And So I did without asking him permission. This was early on. So, but after the abuse started. So we went to lunch. I came home from work that day and I told him how we went to lunch and he flipped and he was like, why would you go to any, where did you go? And it was like Don Pablo's. Oh, so it was a bar. You went to a bar? I wasn't there. Who looked at you? Did anybody talk to you? Was anybody checking you out? Did you talk to any guy? And it was just like this full-blown interrogation that resulted in me never wanting to go out with my coworkers for lunch again.
Because there could be guys there.
Oh, yeah. Heaven forbid anybody lays eyes on you. That means you're automatically sleeping with them.
Oh, definitely. Your phone goes off during that conversation. Oh, my goodness.
Right. Yeah. And so that's an example of, well, that's actually where it escalated too. So for a period of time, I didn't hang out with anybody. Well, that's what it ended up being for the rest of the next 22 years. But I didn't go out. I didn't socialize with anybody. We had, I think, actually one of the scariest moments of my life was moving out from home to move in with him. And the reason I did it was because I was pregnant. And I had to go. And, yeah, that was scary. So we had our first child. And right, I don't remember the first time that he hit me. Let's see. But I do remember this. I was 17 when I got with him. When I was 19, I had already gotten stitches. He took a glass mug, like a beer mug, but I still lived at home. So we were at my parents, and it was like a Friday or Saturday night. My parents didn't drink alcohol. They would go to Denny's with their best friends and just hang out and have coffee and whatnot. So my parents weren't home, and it was just him and me. And he was going back to a time that was before I dated him. And I had gone to Chestnut Ridge with my friends. And that's what you did when you were my age. We all went up to what we called the Strip. And we brought our cars and we'd sneak some beers and smoke cigarettes and just pretend that we were cool. Or pick up guys if you could. So he brought this up and he's like, my friend, blah, 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 said that he made out with you. And I didn't even know who his friend was. And so this whole thing escalated. And I wasn't even going out with him at the time, but this is what he chose to pick. And for no reason at all, it escalated. And he's like, were you with anybody? Are you sure? Did you sleep with anybody? And blah, 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 blah. And he starts to whack me with this milk mug. And now, I'm crying and I have my back to the wall, sitting on my bed with my knees up in the air and my feet down. So I'm trying to protect myself. And he's whacking this mug and it finally split on my shin and it cut me inside and out. I had to have stitches inside and outside. Well, my parents got home soon after that. And he went downstairs and he went to them and he said, Sue cut herself. And I don't know, I defended that. I never once told them the truth. I never said what happened. We went to the hospital. I got stitched up, and that was done. I think that my mother had a sneaking suspicion because moms just do.
Mother's intuition.
Yeah. So that was when I was 19. And let's see, I had my son just before I turned 21. So it was shortly after that I became pregnant. I remember keeping a calendar when I still lived at home. And I'd put a little smiley face or a medium face or a sad face because the behavior that he would display, I tried to categorize it and see if I could tie it into anything.
I did that.
No way.
I totally did that. Except I had a shape for physical, a shape for emotional, like for the specific things he was doing. That's how I tracked it. And his cycle of violence was 2 weeks exactly.
Wow.
And then he found out that I was doing that, and he took the calendar away and gave me a dry erase one.
Ugh. Oh my God. Wow. So, look, we know early on that something's not right, but they have their hooks in us, and we feel that is love for whatever they're giving us that we have a void for. That is what we're hosting from, or that's what they're hosting from. So for him, I revealed to him, how I'd been called the N-word all my life, and I had this complex about my looks. Well, he swept me off my feet. He said, you're exotic looking, you're beautiful, and all these wonderful things. Excuse me. And, and then all the other stuff, you're smart and blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Well, so that's what ended up happening. He did sweep me off my feet, and he did start off with charm, which is a big entrance point. And he did chip away my interest and my friends and eventually my family and eventually everything that meant anything to me except for him. And that was a horribly scary place to be, not knowing how this next event would escalate. I didn't fear for my life for a couple of years later, but all of this stuff, just continued to get worse and worse. And then the saving grace would be when they make themselves cry.
Oh
when
my gosh.
they say,
or fake a seizure.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mine faked a heart attack. Oh, my arm. It was the wrong arm. And he did that twice.
I have actually witnessed somebody, the last guy that I dated before him, actually physically had a seizure because he mixed his medication with his alcohol, and he was an alcoholic.
Oh my
and I
gosh.
didn't know that he was doing it. I just felt him shaking. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop doing whatever you're doing. And I looked over. I'm like, oh my God. So I had physically seen one. So my ex would fake it. He would just drop to the floor and start shaking. And then
Wow.
eventually, he did it outside too. Out when we were out, but then eventually my mom told me to tell him that the next time he does it, I'm calling 911. No, I don't care why you're doing it, if it's real or anything. He stopped.
Yeah, exactly. So I had left. I left a total of 3 times, and I took him back 3 times, and then I married him. And the first time that I left was when we had our first child, and he was 6 months old, and I was terrified. Oh, I was so scared. And I left. I had set it up. I went to an apartment. And I didn't tell anybody except my best friend and my mom. Well, when he had gone on a fishing trip for the day. And so when he had come home, I left the note. I left the engagement ring, and he went. I don't know if he tried my mom or not. He might have not. I had the kahunas to do it, but he did go to my best friend physically, because he was best friends with her best friend. So they went and they demanded she tell them where I was, and she just said, I don't know. She didn't tell me. I don't know. And my ex threatened her, you tell me or I'm gonna sink your truck to the bottom of Lake Erie. And she goes, I told you I don't know. And I'll tell you, if you go to the bottom of Lake Erie, there sits her pickup truck. I thank you so much, Candy, for defending me forever. I have thanked her. And let's see.
Wouldn't that be a felony?
Probably. She didn't report it. She was probably scared too. And I didn't find out about that for years later. Yeah, she didn't even tell me until years later.
You just were like, oh, you got a new car?
Well, no, we didn't hang out because she had a kid and I had a kid right at the same time. And as, I was isolated, she stopped coming over.
Yeah.
My own sister stopped coming over. My parents didn't come around anymore because it was a hostile, weird atmosphere. The air was weird, and they had enough. They didn't want to come over anymore because they did not feel comfortable. So I finally did leave and stay gone. Well, no, I didn't leave. What had happened was we had a total of 3 kids. When our daughter was 16, she took me aside one morning and she said, Mom, I can't take living like this anymore. It's either him or me. Now, between the time my firstborn, well, they're only 2 years apart. So let's say for 16 years or so, as my children grew up, in their eyes, I think I was just mom the doormat. So we didn't really have a mother-child relationship. My only alone time was when he was watching TV at nighttime before he passed out, because he also was and is an alcoholic. He would come and monitor our conversations to make sure we weren't talking about him. So as I was working, he would order them around get me a beer, sweep the floor, mop the floor, do this, do that, do that, and just make them crazy. So he didn't want them to tell me of the hell of their day when I got home from work. So that's why he monitored all the conversations. And so I wasn't really there as a mother. And I thought that I would die by his hands. And there was one morning I just thought of driving my car off of an overpass and just saying, I'm done. And what held me back from that was my children. In my mind, I said, there's no way I can leave my children with him if I were to remove myself. So I didn't do it. But that is pretty much when I had given up, and I said, I'm going to die by his hands. So thank goodness now, my daughter did this, and she said, it's either him or me. I'm running away if you don't change the way we're living. If you don't do something, I'm out of here. And so after being in a pattern of that kind of life of living on eggshells, twisting how the day was to appease him, trying to smooth everything over all the time, and usually pulling it off, to now all of a sudden having to turn and look and face reality and have to upset everything so that my daughter doesn't run away. And knowing that she was right, I knew something had to be done. So I told her, yeah, you are right. And but I'll tell you what. I said, the next time something happens, I'll let you call 911. Did I say too many ones? 911. But but I said, only do it when I give you the signal, because my greatest fear was, what if the police were called and they came to the door, and A, what if he knew them and they just laughed and left? Or, well, that's B. What if they just left and nothing happened? Then I certainly would have gotten beaten worse. So I wanted to make sure I had enough evidence on me the next time that we started a fight. So that did happen within the next 2 weeks. And I told her, go ahead. She called 911. The police had come, and I opened the door and then went way back against the wall. And it was about 11 o'clock at night, and all the lights were off except for the TV. So they had come to the front door, and I opened the door and backed off, and they said that we got a call that there was a disturbance here. And my husband at the time said, no, there's nothing going on here. I'm just having a beer with my wife. Tell him, honey. So I'm like scared to death. So the officer shines his flashlight on my husband's face, on the can of beer on the table in front of him, across the room to where my back is against the wall. And I'm bleeding from my mouth. I have bright red handprints around my throat. I have blood on my shirt. They shined the flashlight back on him, and they said, come on, you're coming with us. And they took him down to the station.
While you were clearing your throat.
It's kind of like that. But I don't know how to do it. And so they took him overnight. My daughter and I had gone down in a separate car, and I was shaking like a leaf. I was so scared. My mind was fried. I had no clue what was ahead of us, what to do, how tomorrow was going to play out, anything, just nothing. I was just numb. Oh,
could you
horrible.
speak?
I couldn't process. No.
I was the same way when all of that happened. The police came, they took him. I couldn't even physically speak or anything.
It's like when you pass out and you can hear what's going on,
yes.
but you can't say anything.
I just broke into tears, and he's like, you need to answer. I'm just like,
I got nothing.
I got no voice. It's completely gone.
Mouth won't open.
Ursula came.
So I couldn't understand anything. They're telling me all about, services that are available, and they're giving me pamphlets and explaining stuff. But my daughter told me, because I barely remember. She says, you weren't even there. She said, they were asking you if you understood what they said, and you weren't even saying anything. So it was really weird. Well, my husband expected everything was going to be hunky-dory, as it had been every other time that I left and took him back. And then when he realized that it wasn't, he started the creepy stuff that he would do every other time that I left him until I took him back. But this time I didn't take him back. So he would do things like call and then put the phone up against the radio for some creepy song or call and just listen and then hang up from, random payphones because we had caller ID. and just all that goofy crap. The kids and I slept for the next 2 weeks. And that was kind of weird. I assimilate that with post-traumatic stress disorder. We just were like, ugh.
Exhausted.
Yeah. Because when you're in that situation, you can't get a sound night's sleep. Because for the kids, they never know. Like, he used to come in their room and interrogate them. And that's what he did to me, too. So there was never calm. There was never true calm. There was always some kind of ruffling, some unsettlement, which is horribly unhealthy. So after we slept for 2 weeks, we moved. I moved to a different house just a few miles away. We had a contract on a house in Holland. It was 2 wooded acres. And I was like, oh, my God, no way am I going to 2 wooded acres. The way he's creepy now, I'd be scared to death he'd be, and he would be. I'm certain that he would have been lurking around and creeping me out. So I pulled the contract on that, and I moved to a small little house in a populated area so I didn't have to worry about being out in the woods alone, and started life completely over at age 39. I had no idea what had happened since 1986. Nothing in the news, nothing in the music industry. Like, I didn't know who Pearl Jam was because we only listened to the classic rock station, which is the same 20 songs over and over for years and years and years. So I didn't know any new music. I was clueless on any current events. I didn't know how to look, how to dress, how to act for my age. I didn't know. I was just completely clueless. What's worse is I didn't know who the creatures were in my house. I didn't know my own children. They didn't know me. I didn't know how to address them. It's not like I could just go, yay, and hug them. And it was much more complex than that. So when we first moved, I remember sitting on my back step. I used to smoke cigarettes up until like 6 or so years ago. I sat on my back stoop on my 40th birthday, and I was smoking a cigarette. And just a mess, not understanding how I was going to move forward or anything. Well, my ex called my oldest son. The kids came with me, of course. And he said to my son, Mom slept with all my friends. Oh, God.
That's how he started the conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, son, this is what happened.
Yes. And so he got off the phone and came outside and told me. And I just felt like, throwing my hands up in the air and saying, you know what? I'm sick of being on the defense stand, because that's what life was like being with him, letting him know, no, nobody looked at you today. Nobody said anything. Nobody complimented you. You didn't have any conversations. No, you're not lying. Yes, you swear on the kid's life that you're not lying. This was our daily conversation after work every single day.
This is my odometer reading.
Yeah, there you go. And it was so bad I couldn't even go to Kmart for a hairdryer. I had to ramp up and prepare, even just for something like that. So I was very, very controlled. So once this all happened and this conversation happened, and I said to my son, I said, no, I didn't. But I'm just exhausted. I'm tired of defending myself. And he and my daughter, they both said, you know what? Don't worry, because the truth will come out in the end. And that was the worst and best thing that could have been said, because at that time I just felt so exhausted. I just wanted my kids to be able to see through everything and just know who I was, but they really didn't know who I was. Because I wasn't able to be myself. I wasn't able to be my regular happy-go-lucky self. I compared to when Rudolph had to wear that black cover on his nose and being fake and living life that way. And that's how I felt for all those years. So slowly, the kids got to know who I was. And luckily, they like me. And lucky I like them, too. And so we spent the last 8 years getting to know one another. Shortly after my husband was removed, my son had bought a car, and he parked it in front of his girlfriend's house, and somebody stole it. Well, somebody had called and told him where it was. So I took him to the car, and we started to tow it back home. And we started hearing some like strange pulling sounds. And suddenly, like, I think the bumper of my car started pulling off. And my poor son was so scared that I was going to freak out. And I just laughed. It's like, you know what? It's just a bumper. I don't care. It's okay. We're here. We're not being hurt anymore. I don't care. But in our old life, any any little thing would set him off. Anything. So if the car broke down, oh, God forbid, because I'd get the piss beat out of me. I didn't break the car. Just something happened. It didn't matter. And so that's what life was like. But now this is our new chapter of life, and getting to know each other. It was scary, but it was beautiful. So there were times, that I was able to be there for them. And that's what I wanted the most. I wanted to prove that I would now be there for them. And I was like almost desperate, just trying to find ways to let them know. But luckily, things came up and I was able to be there, and it was wonderful. So I started to open up and show who I was. And they got to see, oh, I'm fun and I laugh, because I didn't do that in our old life. They didn't know me as that kind of a person. So over these past 8 years, things have really, really progressed for my children and for myself. My son, who is now in his 20s, he started working out when he was 15. The reason was because he wanted to kick his father's butt.
Good reason.
Well, at the time when he was 15 and we all still lived together, and his father went to him, he's like, what are you working out for? You're never going to get any bigger. Well, I'll tell you what, today he's a New York State record holder. He's all natural. He abhors alcohol and drugs and cigarettes because that's what he grew up watching and smelled like. He went to a Catholic school, and they would always accuse him of smoking, both of my kids, so they hate that. We did that to our kids. I feel horrible for that too. So yeah, my son is awesome. He wouldn't harm a person unless he needed to, but he's huge. He's all natural. He's a bodybuilder. He's a trainer. He's a wonderful person who doesn't have resentment. And he took that as a springboard to say, this is what I don't want to be. So hooray for him. My daughter, the middle child, she chose to go across the country. And so that's what she's doing with her best friend. My youngest was 4 when we first started life over again. But for the next 5 years, until he was 9, I was so scared of my ex that I just allowed anything he wanted. Every weekend, visitation. I didn't bother asking for child support for anybody, for any of the kids. I was terrified. I was scared of him. And I didn't want to upset the apple cart. Well, finally, when he was 9, he pretty much just had a meltdown. He's like, you don't understand. He swears at me. He drinks all the time. He hits me. I'm not going there anymore. You got to do something. And so here I am again, only because my children helped me to find courage that I didn't think I had. I was like, oh my God, I there's no way I can allow that to continue. So that's when I went to the sheriff's, and they helped me fill out some paperwork. And I now asked for reduced visitation or supervised, and I asked for child support because he refused to even pay the New York State minimum of $25 a month. So going to court was the scariest moment of my life, which ended up being also the most bravest moment of my life. Being in court, I didn't bring anybody with me. My dad was like, you should have asked me to come and blah, blah. Maybe I should have, but I don't know. I didn't. I just didn't. And I never told my dad the extent of the abuse either. I didn't tell my dad that I had been raped. He would have put a bullet between his eyes.
Do you regret it?
Regret not telling my dad? I don't think so, because my dad knows enough. He knows that he beat me, and that's enough. I didn't want to hurt him anymore. So being in court and seeing him walk in, I had, I don't know what it would be clinically called, but an anxiety attack, a panic attack. I was trembling. I felt like wrecking balls were going against my rib cages, and it was just horrible. I was with my attorney. I wasn't alone. And it was a tough thing to get over, to get through facing him. And I convinced myself, he's just a man. Stop it. But it didn't work. I tried everything in the book to try to calm myself, and it just didn't work. I was so scared. I mean, years and years of intimidation and beatings and threats. In fact, the last time I came back to him, and before I married him, he had said, in a very scary way, he stood over me in my face, jabbing me in the face with his finger, saying, if you ever leave me again, I'm going to kill your family, and then I'm going to kill you. And I thought he might be crazy enough to do that. So being in court was really scary. However, we did get through it. At first, he just tried to blame everything on me and claim, but you don't need to hear all that. But here's what you do need to hear, because this is what changed my life. As cliche as that sounds, this was the pivotal point which gave me the courage to keep on going, stronger than ever. After several months in court, because we had to go once a month if he showed up, there was one
if he showed up.
Yeah. One of the times, the attorneys had said, okay, you need to go up to this other floor because visitation and child support are on 2 different floors. So I was like, oh my God. So I went boarding over to the elevator really, really fast and stood there and pray that door would fly open and I could just get in.
Tell me he didn't write it with you.
Well, he calmly strode over to the elevator, and there was no one else around. So I'm standing there facing this elevator saying, come on. And he just very calmly, and he stood there, kitty corner behind me. And I was thinking, what could he possibly say? I hope he doesn't say anything. Or if he does, maybe he'll say, I'm sorry. Yeah, right. And so these are the words that came out of his mouth. Now, there was no one else around. I seen pictures of you on the internet with other men. I have those pictures. The elevator door opens, I get in, and it closes. He does not get in with me. Now I'm processing this. I do promotions. I am out intentionally getting pictures with people, and it's okay. So I'm processing this. Woo! Wow! Is that all he's got? Yes! Woohoo! At that moment, the shift of power came from him to me. Now, if I wasn't clear about that, he was trying to threaten me by saying he's got pictures of me with guys on the internet. Why this is okay is because I work in promotions. So I have pictures with other guys on purpose. This is what I do and love. So I go out. If you might see me in a liquor store offering samples of different things. I worked at the casino. I work at the Rich Stadium or the whatever it's called now. I am everywhere doing all these awesome promotions. So this means nothing. There's nothing out there.
Technically, he's telling you you're doing your job well.
Yeah. So that was beautiful. And from that moment forward, I realized he's got nothing. There's nothing out there. There's nothing out there that I wouldn't want out there. Everything is placed there. I have kids. I don't want anything I do out there where I wouldn't want my own kids to see it. So I'm very conscious of what I do. So that's why, this is okay. There's no drunk pictures of me being, weird or, stupid or irresponsible. So that was awesome. Everything did end up panning out the way it should have. I was paranoid. I hated my attorney. I figured she didn't understand domestic violence, and there's been a lot of ups and downs and battles and back and forth throughout a couple of years. And I wouldn't change any of it for the world. It put me in a position today to help mentor people who are going through, going through court and going through the things that lead into isolation and some of these red flags and why we stay for the kids and all these different things. So today, I have my older two, they're out on their own. My youngest is 12, and since he stopped seeing his father, well, let me tell you what. When I was scared and he saw his father every weekend, he'd be sick. He would get sick starting on Wednesday, knowing that he was going to see his father, but I didn't know that. So my youngest, who was 4, from the time till he was 9, missed all kinds of school, almost to the point of failing a grade. That's how much school he missed. But I couldn't find nothing wrong with him. He didn't have a fever. He wasn't throwing up, but he said he had stomach aches and headaches. And then when he did go and see his father, he had a nightmare that his father started our house on fire. So I took him to a psychiatrist. I took him to the pediatrician, and we tried to. I was just exhausted. I was at my wit's end. And there were times I said, "There's nothing wrong with you. You have to go to school," And he, the poor kid. Well, we ended up learning it was anxiety, and it was stress. So this poor kid was stressed out because he knew that in 2 days he'd have to go and see his father. So I'm very happy now to say, since we've gone through all of that court and it's been settled, he pulled himself out as my ex screwed up enough without my help that he ended up having supervised visitation, which he never even bothered to do.
Same here.
So now my son has his color back. This year he has perfect attendance. And, school did get involved. CPS did get involved. And everything is now righted itself. Everything is beautiful. My son, he is just amazing. He's very truth-driven, and he was never afraid of his father, like me. So fortunately, all of us have overcome. We continue to heal. I think me more than anybody. They seem to be better off than I do, but I think, I never want to completely forget about it because I use my story today to help reach 2 other people as well. In fact, that's why I started a non-for-profit. And the first year after he was removed, when I didn't know who my kids were, there was a Saturday afternoon after we had moved. There was a Saturday afternoon, and it was really gray and dismal out and like chilly. And it was fall, I think. And I just had this horrible feeling of heaviness on my shoulders and inability to move forward. And I had not shared why we were split up. I didn't talk to my family too much, and I think they kind of tiptoed around me, just waiting for me to share what I wanted to share when I was ready. So I was still kind of, in my own little space, and I didn't know how to advance. And then it hit me like flipping a switch that I was protecting his family. That's what it was. I didn't want to say nothing because I was worried that his family might hear. I was the one who needed protection, not his family. So at that point, that is when I started to share my story with some people. And as I did that, I was responded to with other survivor stories. My best friend and I both wanted to be radio jocks. And since I turned 17 and got isolated and everything I ever wanted to do became stifled, she did go on and she became a station manager and had I don't want to say a great life because she also ended up with somebody who was abusive, but she's away from him now and is happily married. But we reconnected on MySpace after I had gotten out, and she let me know. Well, actually, when we found each other on MySpace, right around that time, her father had passed away, and she was living out of state. So she came home, and so we got together, and that was the first time I had seen her in over 20 years. We went to a spa together, Now, when you're in an abusive relationship, you don't get to do anything fun for yourself. You don't get to look nice. You never get to feel special. You're always kind of just held at bay and just existing. So to go to a spa, I was lit like a Christmas tree. I was so excited. So we get in there, and this girl's painting my toenails, and my friend Sue was, I don't know, she was getting something else done. And I was talking about how life is so much better, and I can appreciate a whole night of sleep without being interrupted or name called or hit. I can appreciate, a sunrise by myself. I can appreciate my independence and being able to do stuff. Well, this girl who's painting my toenails, her eyes start welling up, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, it's okay, because I'm not in that situation anymore. And little did I realize, wow, other people around me may have been in that situation too, as was this girl who was painting my toenails. And so she told me, I grew up in that kind of a situation, and wow. So over the next 45 minutes or so, we're talking about it. And I don't know, maybe there are probably 30 people who had all come to the room in this room by that point. And we're all talking about domestic violence and knowing somebody or being in that situation or almost, or everybody had a story how domestic violence meant something to them. And so this girl who was painting my toenails and her coworker, I don't know who the coworker was, but she had a story as well. So these two girls, they said, wow, I don't want to share my story. I'm not ready to talk about it. And the other one goes, well, we need you to be our voice. Ting! I was like, ooh, yeah. And out came the cape. And I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. And so that is what catapulted me to go public with my story. I went right in the paper, and I was on TV, and and the whole thing is, you don't do this because you want to bring the other person down. That's not why we do this. I do not name, I don't name names. And the reason that I do this is because there's people listening right now, who know what I'm talking about, who are living in this kind of a situation, or who have lived in that situation, or who knows somebody. This could be your family member. It could be your coworker. It could be your neighbor or your tenant. And you hear this and you don't know what to do, and you don't know how to help them. Or if it's you don't know how to get help, or you just feel like nobody else understands or nobody will listen. And I know for me, I felt like no one else would understand. It's like, I can't go to tell anybody about this. They'll laugh at me. They won't believe me, or they'll think I deserved it, or that I brought it on, or any.
Or they say the signature, why don't you just leave?
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah, or I would never let that happen to me. Okay. Yeah, the things that people say is just kind of really out there. But this is why I share my story. So you know that you are not alone, and there is help. And I'll tell you, when it was me, this was several years ago, and help was not as publicized as it was today. And I'll never forget, one time at work, I looked online for help. I found a phone number. I called the phone number, and the voicemail box was full. I sent an email. The email got bounced back. Website links were broken. So once I started to share my story, I said, I'm going to take this up a notch. I'm going to start an organization. And so that's what I did. At first, it was called OP Music House because I wasn't prepared to share my story. I was more ready to talk about local music, and because that's what I loved also. And I tried to put the two things together, and I had a vision of a community center where
OP Music House was the first time I remember you coming into my radar.
Yeah.
I went to a
2010.
I went to when I was with my ex. I dropped him off at work, and I told him I was going out, and that's where I went.
Oh my goodness. Wow. And that's when this whole thing started. And so the vision was people would come in, young people can get tips and tricks from people who are in the music industry, and that I would have the equipment and instruments in one place. And so if they have, can you say, if you have parents who are yelling at each other?
I mean, whispering a word that you're not sure about. If I'm glad that it's okay to say, but if it wasn't, it's still a violation.
So if you have parents that are yelling at each other and you wanted someone to come and play your instruments or learn how to record, that was the vision of OP Music House, where you could come and do that. However, if you wanted somebody to talk to about what was going on, that we would also offer that. So that was the original vision. And it's changed over the years, and I thought we were going to move into this awesome church, but I didn't have any money, and it didn't come raining in. So what we have done, though, is we created the Exposure Concert, and 2010 was the first one, back at Club Paradise, which is now closed. Since then, we moved it to the Cove on Transit, and it's been there ever since. So what this is, it's a free show. It's all these local bands come and they play for free. If it means something to them or if they just want promotion, I don't even care. They're donating their time to be there. Allentown Joe, he donates our drum kit. He might be doing our sound too, or our amps too. I'm not sure yet. Yorkville Sound has been there for us. Regal Tip Drumsticks has been there ever since day one, as has Certo Brothers. They give us booze for a month, I call it, and we raffle that off. So there's a Drummer's Delight package, and we raffle that off. So all these, who else? There's Dan Ned from Style and Tattoo. There's Barry from the Head Shop, Terrapin Station, and I'm sure there's more that I'm not thinking of right now. But we have all kinds of sponsors, and they kick down gift certificates, and we have a bunch of volunteers, and then we have Small Business Saturday. That's a new addition, which is just amazing. So from all this horrible negativity, and for me it was 22 years. That's a long time. So I use my story to prevent you from falling into this horrible pit that I did. And please don't stay in this for 22 years. You don't need to stay under somebody else's foot. And if you think, excuse me, that you can fix them, you can't. That's a big thing. People who fall victim to situations like this, there's a certain profile that they fit. They're compassionate. They are energetic. And they're very caring and very loving. And they want to take care of people. Well, guess what? We want to fix these people. These people come to us in a broken state. And we think that when they blow up, they lose it, that it's something that's out of their control. And that we can somehow nurture them into not being that way anymore. And it's simply not the case. So you need to know this. We can't fix people who fly into a fit of rage, who blame it on, it was a reaction, or, I have a chemical imbalance, or, I'm sorry, but it made me think of this and I just lost it. Because guess what? They do know what they're doing. They are not losing control. They know exactly what they're doing. And what they're doing is putting the fear of God into you so that they can keep control of you. This is all about power and control. And they don't always resort to violence, even though the term domestic violence, but it also encompasses words. Words can scar way deeper than a black eye can. If you're being told you're useless, you're ugly, you'll never amount to anything, nobody else would want you, no one else can love you the way that I love you, and guess what? We hope not, because that hurts. You don't need to listen to that. You don't need to take it. And they're not going to stop, because a good, loving, healthy, that's an important word, a healthy relationship never breaks each other down. You should be encouraging each other. It doesn't mean you have to like the same things or like the same hobbies. We're not talking about that. We're talking about encouraging each other and support with what each other wants to do. Somebody might not be telling you, you're beautiful every 2 seconds of every day. That's not what this is about. But it's not, you're fat, you're useless, you're ugly. It's not those kinds of attacks. I remember, here's a horrible story. When I was 7 months pregnant with our second child, he had taken my car. Well, I gave him permission. He took my car, he took my paycheck, and he went to Canada and blew it all with his best friend on strippers. And he came home, beat the piss out of me, and I waited for him to pass out. He passed out on the kitchen floor. I took my firstborn, who was just under 2 at the time and 7 months pregnant and beat up. I walked to his parents' house and knocked on the door, and I said, "This is what your son did to me." I mean, it's not like I didn't try to reach out for help, but I didn't know how to and get results. So I figured, go to the source, go to the kid's mom, go to the kid, go to his parents. And they saw me, they took me in, and they asked if I felt safe going back. Well, now I'm in a predicament. What am I going to say? If I say no, I don't know. So I went back thinking I would somehow be monitored, and sure I was. His mother would say, "Is everything okay?" But if everything wasn't, and it wasn't, I didn't feel I could tell her, because now he was chastising me. "You didn't say that to my mother, right? You know I'll kick the out of you if you do." And so that's the way it went. So when you're in a situation like this, I'm going to reiterate that you cannot fix them. When they pretend to have a heart attack or a seizure, tell them, "I'll call 911 for you." That's the best way you can help them. It's also the best way to find out that they are faking it, because that's what they do.
Exactly.
My ex's brother helped me to move. And the second time around, and when he kept on calling, I told him exactly what would happen. I said he's gonna indicate somehow that he's gonna hurt himself. I can't go on, and he did. And then he's gonna indicate that he's having a heart attack, and he did. And so this time I told his brother, "Well, tell him to go to the emergency room." Well, that stopped that right away. So these are the things you need to watch out for. Extreme jealousy. If they are going through your phone or Facebook more than you, that's a big one. If you are uncomfortable, and we'll go one step further, if you're uncomfortable to be alone with this person, if they are taking away the things that bring you joy, the things that you have an interest in, your hobbies, the things that you love to do, if they are trying to strip these things away from you, that's another indicator. You should be able to feel worthy every day of your life, and the person that you're with should never challenge that, because you are worthy. You never deserve it. Ever, 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 ever. There's nothing you can do that deserves to be put down, hit, and violated. Ever. It's a crime. So as long as you know that you're living the best life that you know how, and you're not hurting anyone else, all the power to you. Because it is all about love. Right?